Hi guys, one of the most frustrating things about Brexit is the lack of understanding of the issue when it comes to those who support it most. From the very beginning, those who did have a better grasp of the eventual consequences of the UK leaving the EU knew that Northern Ireland would play a pivotal role. But when we ask questions, we get non-answers. When we raise concerns, we were called scaremongers. Northern Ireland will be fine. There's nothing to worry about. The EU will do a deal. The Irish government will do a deal. Electronic Solutions followed ideas that nothing would need to be checked as nothing would change. Well, for large, small and medium-sized businesses in Northern Ireland who were ignored, they knew better than most what impact Brexit would have. Here a lady called Anne schools James O'Brien on the problems Brexit has created and the British government's mishandling of it. Have a listen.
The insecurity is horrendous. We just don't know whether we're going to be out of business in a year's time or whether we'll have a farm still in a year's time.
Jeez.
So our milk has to cross the border for processing, along with another 800 million litres every year. So
Into the Republic?
Yes.
Yes.
Northern Ireland doesn't have enough processing capacity for all the milk produced in Northern Ireland. So if we lost our single market access and couldn't send our milk across the border, at least a third of it would be not collected from the farms. It would have to be disposed of,
Good
which would
Lord.
be an environmental catastrophe as well as a financial hit.
Yes.
So we need that single market access. Now, I see all the unionist bloggers and anti-protocol people on Twitter this last couple of days especially saying, but why can't we have UK rules for people who don't want to send it south and EU rules for people who do? But the Dairy Council in Northern Ireland has spelt out really clearly why that won't work. Because we need a vet in the Northern Ireland has to certify that the milk that is going to the Republic has been produced to EU standards.
Yes, of course they
The
do.
vets,
So we're back
in
to
the
regular.
Republic then.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so and it's not done by load at the moment. It's a sort of once a month thing. The paperwork is all done, but they can sign up to that because they know at the moment it's been produced to EU standards.
Well,
Because
it's
they know
regulatory
alignment.
it's regulatory alignment. I mean, it's that dread
Yeah,
phrase.
yeah.
That I don't think it actually appears specifically in the Good Friday Agreement, but it is between every
But that's
line.
what the
You need
dairy
it. You need
industry
it.
absolutely needs regulatory alignment, and they're not the only ones. I used to think that they talked about the dairy a lot because it's a really easy one to visualise, a milk tanker crossing the border and
Yes.
then the butter being made and then the butter coming back across to be sold in Northern Ireland, and this is what happens. But it's not. It's actually a really big industry too. So
course.
but not to be selfish about it. There are many other businesses that would be.
You're not being
affected.
selfish. You're simply speaking from your own perspective.
And there you have it. So, one of the problems when it came to Northern Ireland in particular was that there was no consultation. Brexiteers did not go to Northern Ireland and speak with farmers and businesses there and say, look, if we were to leave the European Union, how would that impact your farms? How would that impact your businesses? There was no consultation whatsoever. Brexiteers in England decided we're leaving. We don't know the consequences. We don't know how it will impact Northern Ireland. We don't know how it will impact the Union. We're just leaving. And you had people in Northern Ireland, in this case, raising concerns as, following the vote, leading up to the vote as well, but following the vote, and there was no consultation. There was no, okay, let's meet with businesses and farmers and other communities in Northern Ireland to get their understanding of what leaving the EU will actually mean. It was all centralised in London. The people surrounding Boris Johnson and Theresa May to a lesser extent knew what they were doing. How dare you suggest that they didn't know what was going on, that they wouldn't know how Northern Ireland would be dealt with. And that's why it went on for so long. And this is why it was such an issue at the beginning. It was ignored. It was an issue in Ireland. It was an issue in Northern Ireland. But because Northern Ireland is forgotten by Brexiteers in particular, but to a lesser extent the Tories, it was left on the long finger. It was yeah, it'll be dealt with later on. We will sort it out. Don't worry. We'll have an electronic border, or the EU will come to us to make a deal. The Unionists, particularly the DUP, would like to have a hard border on the island of Ireland, because some of them would like to go back to the bad old days. They'd be itching to see loyalist paramilitaries engaging with Republican paramilitaries. But the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland don't want that. And you have Rishi Sunak, unfortunately, listening to the likes of the DUP, who continually say that the protocol is the problem, not Brexit. And I keep saying that Brexit is the fire and the protocol is the fire extinguisher. Brexit is the problem. And you need to have a solution that fits in Northern Ireland. Now, is the protocol perfect? Of course not. It has a lot of problems, but the framework is good. The framework is something that can be built around or built upon. And we've seen examples of that. Problems have arisen. The EU has met with stakeholders in Northern Ireland, listened to them, got feedback from them, and worked the protocol into a way that will fix those problems or ease those problems. You know, we've heard businesses explain the problems with the protocol. We've yet to hear concrete examples from the unionist community, apart from sovereignty and being part of the United Kingdom. We haven't heard any real problems, or any problems that have been raised have been resolved. And unfortunately, the EU, when it went to negotiate all of this with the UK government, had on the other side of the table people like David Davis, or Boris Johnson, or Lord Frost, dishonest charlatans who were not interested in actually having a reasonable relationship with the EU, were just interested in grandstanding and boosting their own egos or boosting their careers. People who didn't understand what they were doing, and certainly didn't understand Northern Ireland and the consequences Brexit would have for Northern Ireland. And now we're back to square once again, talking about Northern Ireland, talking about how to square this circle. It was a massive problem. Brexit created a massive problem here. But the people who created the problem in the first place, the Brexiteers, like the ones who campaigned for it, Rishi Sunak and others, need to come up with a solution. And the solution has to be to face down the Brexiteers in his party and the Brexiteers in Northern Ireland, the DUP, and think about what's rational, not what's ideological. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.